Hey everybody, in today's video we're going to show how to build from scratch a model machine gun like you'd use for a heavy stubber or an orc big shooter or something along those lines. Alright, welcome everybody to Epic Conversions. Again, we're going to talk about building model machine guns from scratch. You can also apply this to other weapons, but for the moment we'll just focus on the machine gun and go through the steps to build that. I've made a list of the steps and you can see that below and download it. I've also put it at the end of the video for those of you who want to just skip to that and follow the list to build the gun rather than listening to some old dude talk. 4 materials. First, you'll need some plasticard. You can get that from train stores or online. Just search for plasticard. Evergreen is a company that makes a lot of plasticard products. You can also just go to your hobby store or your home supply store and get a cheap sign, no parking sign, any kind of yard sign. Those things that, as long as it's cheap and plastic, you can get those for about $3 to $5. Big old sign-sized sheet. That's the same kind of plastic we use. The model glue will bind that just like it does our plastic figures. You'll also need some plastic rod and tube. Again, train supply stores or just online. Make sure you get diameters that look like they will fit inside each other. You'll also need modeling glue. Pin vise drill is handy, but not necessary. You can do it without it, but it is much safer than trying to do all of the drilling with an X-Acto. You'll need an X-Acto knife to start holes and to trim parts, and a pair of scissors to cut the plasticard. Here's a preview of the parts. I cut them out in advance since I knew what I was making. And this is the kind of machine gun that we're going to look at building. The one I'm going to do is a little bit smaller than this, but I actually kind of like the longer one better. You do want to match the size to the models you're making the weapon for, so I'm not going to list the sizes of any of these parts. You're just going to have to eyeball the sizes and make them approximately the same size as the weapons in the army you're trying to emulate. So to start, we're going to make the base of the gun by gluing 2 thicker pieces of card together, or you can use more of a thinner card, such as 3 or 4 instead of just 2. We'll take a thinner set and make a top and a back to hide the seam. And we'll just cut those out and glue them on. One handy trick for picking up smaller parts is you can actually stab it with the X-Acto and use that to hold it, as you can see on this video. When I tried to pick it up with my finger, I was having trouble, so I just stabbed it with the knife and used that to put it in place. You won't really see those small marks once the model's finished. Next, we're going to drill the barrel, the vents for the barrel. I start that with an X-Acto knife and then finish with the drill. You can do the whole thing with the X-Acto, but do be careful. The tubes will roll sometimes and it's easy to cut yourself. Giving blood to the blood god is not the purpose of the video. For guns that would be for orcs, you can be a little bit more messy. You want things to look like they've been blown out and are ragged, and but for other Imperium type models, you want to make sure that the holes are nice and clean, so trim those. Make sure that you remove any of the excess flash as you get through the drilling. And then we'll just glue that barrel to the base of the gun. Next, we'll do the tip of the gun. We'll put a rod down the main tube and put another tube on the end of that. Make sure you don't cover up any of the holes you've drilled. And then we'll put a small gun sight on the end of the barrel just by cutting out a small piece of plastic and attaching it to the end of that barrel. Again, you can see I'm using the X-Acto to hold that tiny, tiny piece. Now for the underbarrel assembly, we're going to take a tube and glue that to the base of the gun. We'll put a rod down that tube and then a tiny ring of tube and line that up with the bottom of the gun barrel. With that done, let's make a grip for the gun. We'll glue a piece of plastic underneath, glue a rod to the end of that plastic, and a little ring tube around the end of the rod, and a tiny little square for a trigger. If you want two grips, you can arrange them in a Y fashion by doing two of them and arranging them at the center in a Y shape, or you can make a T shape and put the rods at the end of those to make grips. And you can line those up with your model if you have a gunner model you're lining that up with. Next, we'll make an ammo box. We'll glue two pieces of plastic together. Thicker ones make it simpler. You can use more if you don't have thick card. Then we'll glue a top and a side to that to hide the seam. And we'll glue two tiny triangles to the end of that to give it that sort of traditional ammo box look. Here we'll add an ejector outlet for the shells. To do that, we'll glue a piece of plastic to the side of the gun, just in a rectangle shape. And then we'll cut a small rectangle and two tiny triangles and put them on the side to form that opening that the shells eject out of. I added some extra details to the gun base just to give it some detail. In my step 11, I do show what I did there. Really just kind of match the types of things that are on the side of the guns in the army you're matching, or just do some random shapes just to give it some depth so that it's not just a plain rectangle. And then to make a base for the gun, you'll take 3 rectangles. In one, you'll cut out the middle and glue the 2 ends to the top one. And then take the third one and put it crosswise in the gap that you've made, and that'll give you a solid base. You glue a tube to that, put a rod in the tube, and now you can remove that gun from whatever you're mounting it on. And here are the instructions in complete form. As I said, you can download these below, but if you want to follow along with these as you're making it, it does show everything step by step. Thanks everybody for watching. I really appreciate your support. If you like and subscribe, you can get more of these updated videos as they come out. I'm going to be covering all kinds of different Scratch builds and conversions to help make your models unique.